Welcome home, brave heroes. I'm Ash, this is AshQuest, and recently Sorry, I can't deal with a crooked camera. Hold on. Having Ian Sheffield's beautiful dungeon mats as a backdrop is a blessing and also a curse because I can see exactly where my camera should be centered to get a perfect scene. Anyway, nobody cares about that. Recently, I gave a poll to my Patreon members asking which game should I unbox for the channel. Here is a shot of what those results looked like, and I broke the tie by asking in my Discord. And so Tiny Epic Quest won. Tiny Epic Quest. I have glitter on my hand from the recent fairy box video that may or may not have gone up yet. Oh no. Is one in a series of Tiny Epic games by Scott Elms, published by Gamelin Games. These boxes are meant to be small. They're meant to be very portable. They can be played with 1 to 4 players in about an hour and are meant for ages 14 and up. This particular one is pretty interesting because while the Tiny Epic series is known to come with meeples, this particular game comes with 12 equipable meeples and 24 items. That's right, they're the item meeples. You get a recommendation on what sizes to use for card sleeves, which is super helpful. Every single game ever should have this. And some of the pros of this game: short playtime, high replayability, small box, low downtime, high strategy, medium entry. In Tiny Epic Quest, you will embark on a grand adventure of courage and glory. A once peaceful world has been torn asunder by an army of goblins invading from beneath the land's crust. It's up to the players to prove their valor through slaying goblins, learning ancient spells, completing quests, and acquiring powerful items that equip right to your meeples. Item meeples. Why is it always the goblins, by the way? Can we please get a break from having to slay our fellow goblins? I want justice for the goblins. I demand a Tiny Epic Goblins game. Anti-goblin propaganda. You can also scan the QR code on the back to learn more. This is a standalone game. I did mention that it's part of the Tiny Epic game line, but you don't have to play those to play this one or understand it or anything like that. So we will open the box. We get a lovely image behind with the dice grotto, giving you a reminder of the order of events. First, you will take damage. Second, you will gain power. Third, you will conjure magic or take damage depending on where you're at on the magic track. And then in any order after, you can perform torch, scroll, or attack goblin. That's having to do with the dice that you roll. There's 6 results for a 6-sided die. The Tiny Epic Quest rulebook is quite girthy. This is not a simple game to get into, in my opinion. It does say that it has medium entry, so that's a bit of an admission on the developer's part even. I'm sure people who have played the game will be able to weigh in below with their comments. We have a variety of cards. These are all huge cards, which I actually really like that feature about this game. Huge cards. Each one has literal places that your item meeples will move onto, and that is how the game will be played. You've got your item rack, which is actually 2 boards that you can fit together with the third part. Here it is. And now you've got a 3-dimensional weapons and item rack that you can set off to the side within reach of everybody playing. This is a pretty cool feature of this game. Next, you've got your player cards. You've got 1 for each color: red, green, gold, blue. You want to substitute in your own miniatures and just keep track of who's holding what weapon. You could do that, or you could use the item meeples, which is too cool of a gimmick to not use, you know? I don't know why more games, both low budget and high budget, can't do this, where you can equip your miniatures with different things. I understand some folks might think that there might be like a higher cost associated with it, but honestly, I really think it's not that undoable. It's such a neat feature, and I mean, static monopose models are great and all. I love them. But having equipable weapons, that is too cool. So our player cards are going to go off to the side, and then we'll get a look at the magic track and spell library. This has 2 sides. One of them is for the 2 to 4 player version of the game, and the other is for the single player version of the game. The difficulty changes, the dynamics change just a little bit, obviously, depending on whether it's 1 player or 2 or more. Next, you've got this lovely illustrated map card. Sorry, this isn't called a map card. It has a map on it, but this is the round card. In your bag of tiny wooden tokens, you will find, wooden and cardboard, the round token, which is a very cute little wooden goblin face. We'll just keep that on there, move that off to the side. Otherwise, you've got markers to indicate your max power and max health for each character, as well as butterflies of different colors, which represent spell tokens for the different players, and the mushroom that represents the magic token that will travel along the magic track. There we go. You've also got your health and power tokens, which are hearts and these golden sort of Triforce looking symbols. All right, next, I'm not going to unbag these, but we have goblin token. I actually will, because I have to show you. This is actually really cool. These are goblin tokens, and these pretty much represent the combat part of the game. They are double-sided. You've got a red hostile goblin on one side, and then you've got a goblin with its own body points tracker on the other. And the way that these work is you have various goblin spawning tiles on the map cards, which we will lay out in just a moment. And whenever these spawn a goblin, you will place your goblin token on the card with the gold diamond matching up with the gold icon on the card. And every time this goblin gets hit, it will rotate and slowly get closer and closer to the tiny symbol on its token that looks like a skull, which indicates that the goblin has died. Pretty cool mechanic, pretty cool feature, very simple, not a lot to have to keep track of or anything like that. You just set your token down, there's a goblin, and whenever you're fighting it, it will lose its health, or you will lose your health and die. I talked about the item meeples, and although there are 4 players, you can have more than one of these out on the board at a time. Take out a red one and a blue one. And I'll just grab one of these weapons off the rack. Let's go with a magic staff. We'll equip our magic staff in one hand of the item meeple. The item meeples are plastic, by the way. Typically, these guys are wood or plastic. I typically see them in wood, though, way more than plastic. I don't actually know if I've ever seen a plastic meeple other than this. This might be my first time. So then let's say we draw a card during our adventures. Say a quest card, which this has a lot of quest cards that kind of drive where the gameplay is going, and these are truly what make, along with the map generation, the game not play the same twice in a row. So this is a lost treasure kind of quest. Discover a lost treasure. To complete this quest, complete the Shadow Temple, and as a reward, at any time you may convert hearts into power if you can equip the gemstone. Said another way, the reward for completing this quest is the gemstone, and when you have it equipped, you can convert hearts into power, but not the other way. But we'll get the gemstone off of this board and equip it to our item meeple, just to give you a look at our truly customized game piece now. Ignore the green finger. Most people have a green thumb. I have a green index finger. Okay, we're not really going to get too deep into how this game is played. Just know that you have different ways you can move across the map once you have generated it, and we'll get into the map generation now. I'm actually not confident that we're going to be able to see all the map with where I have the camera. You have a variety of these cards, and 4 of them have kingdoms on them. They're castle map cards is what they're called, and these go into fixed positions on your board, your overall play space. So locate all 4 of them with the different colored castles and place them in this sort of square pattern in whatever order you wish. They're not touching. The rest of these cards will be shuffled and randomly drawn to build out your map. You can't see the entire map that I'm going to build on the table, but it will end up looking something like this, where we have all of our cards laid out. Every single map card gets used, but game to game, they'll be in different places because of the randomization. But every single card, every single map card has its own functions, its own stuff that you can do. There are dungeons in the form of these temples that you can explore that have their own spaces and their own requirements for advancing each space. There are spells that you can learn at altars. And this is important. Every single card is going to be divided in 2 ways, once by a stream or river and another by a road. Although we have the visual distinction of 4 tiles per card, it is really more a left and right tile. So there are 2 tiles per card, but they do have these visual separations for a reason, and we'll get into that next. Anyway, just another example of one of these cards. Our goblin's going to spawn here. Our hero will be on this space to attack the goblin. Another one, this one's got an ice altar. These are actually called spell obelisks. You'll place your hero in front of the obelisk's spell book, and you may attempt to learn the spell of that region during the night phase. They didn't talk about the phases, but the game's rounds are divided into a day phase and a night phase. The day phase, you're moving your people around, you're making moves to try to figure out what you want to resolve during the night phase strategically. And in the night phase, that's when you do the resolution of those actions. The other tile on this card, the other space, has the Ice Temple. And it just goes on like that. So I just have the sampling of a map laid out here. At the beginning of a round, you'll move your pawn, and you can do this in one of 5 ways: by foot, by griffin, by ship, by horse, or by raft. By foot means you can move your pawn 1 map card in any direction. By griffin means you can move diagonal, like a bishop in chess. And it can be any diagonal card. It does not have to be just 1 card. You can go 2 spaces, 3 spaces, as far as you want, as far as the landscape will allow. By ship means you can move from a coast to any other coast, so not the rivers, but more the edges of the map, the outsides of the map. The outermost cards of the map, including the 4 castle cards, will all be connected to the coast, which is the outermost region. So there are actually only 5 cards that you can't access the coast from. But you can travel from one of these coast cards to any other one if you are choosing to move by ship. You can move by horse, which is any space horizontally along the road, and finally by raft, vertically along the river. So if you wanted to move from, say, the Shadow Temple to down here, the Goblin Portal, you could do that because you're traveling on the river. You do have quite a bit of setup for a game that is so small. I think this is where a large part of the accessibility comes in. But once you get the setup mastered and you begin to play, you'll find that this is a push your luck style of game. Said more elegantly than the way that I put it, the day phase is made up of movement and questing, the night phase of adventure and resolution. And during a single round, you will use 4 of the 5 movement cards. There is a first player token, which I have conveniently misplaced. Here it is. You won't be using this if you are only playing solo. And then there are those dice we were talking about. They've got the 6 symbols on each of the 6 faces here. The power symbol, the goblin symbol, again, angry goblin. Why isn't it a cute goblin? The attack a goblin symbol, which is supposed to look like a fist going pow, like in the old Batman show. We have the magic mushroom, and we have the torch, as well as the scroll. As for regions on the map cards, you can go to temples, spell obelisks, or mushroom grottos, as well as goblin portals or castles. Each one of these spaces has its own features and tactical advantage or reason that you would want to visit at particular times. Each hero obviously can hold up to 2 items, and when you gain an item, you must immediately equip it to any of your heroes that has an available hand for it. So if you complete a given task with one hero in one corner of the map, but you have another hero in another corner, and you get an item, you can equip it to the other hero, that's fine. There are movement quests and there are treasure quests. To complete treasure quests, you have to complete the temple listed on the quest card, and to complete a movement quest, you have to move your heroes in the manner described on the quest card. Completing quests will gain you rewards, not just of the treasure variety, like getting you different items, but will also do things like heal your characters, so they can really be advantageous to pursue throughout the course of the game. During the night phase, players take turns rolling the 5 adventure dice in an effort to complete 3 different types of adventures: exploring for items at temples, attacking goblins at portals, or learning spells at obelisks. One of the major push your luck features of this game is the inclusion of the magic track. For each mushroom that you roll during the night phase, you will push your magic token forward 1 space on the magic track, which will designate the magic level, which determines how many spells a player can learn. But if the magic token is on the last space of the magic track, level 3, then each additional mushroom rolled represents 1 damage dealt to the players. Something interesting about damage in this game is that when you roll damage, it doesn't just all go to you. If it's more than 1 point of damage, it's going to get broken up and distributed to each of the players around the table, meaning that this is really a collaborative effort to try to win, because the game is playing against all of you. There is a clarification in the manual for the legendary items, and the definitive rules for the setup and play for a solo game. There is also a game variant called Gloom. You might have noticed while I was shuffling these around that there's an opposite side. This is the Gloom variant. Just when you thought the impending struggles of the mushroom realm couldn't get any darker, a gloomy haze appears, covering the world in fog and making your experience more difficult. The Gloom variant of this game adds more challenges to gameplay. Actually really like this feature. I think it's lovely that they're double-sided cards and that the opposite side is actually part of a completely different game mode, which is the same. If you know how to play, you've got nothing new to learn here, except it's more difficult. The stakes are a little higher. It makes things a lot more interesting, and it gives you options when you're trying to play with experienced players who might grow bored of the main game's challenge. But just one of the examples here, you would still be able to learn the fire spell on the left side of this particular card during the Gloomfall variant, but the fire temple is now slightly more difficult. Instead of having to resolve 1, 1, 2, and then 2 scrolls to complete the fire temple, you would have to resolve 1, 2, 2, and then 2. And for example, this card that features a mushroom grotto, gain 2 hearts for each hero you have outside of your castle, becomes gain 2 hearts for each hero not along the coast. That is statistically going to be a smaller number than the first condition. So the challenge increases, but it's just a tiny bit of an increase. Okay, so we're not going to be playing this game. This was really just more of an unbox and overview. There are other videos, better videos for that sort of thing. I recommend this one, which I will link in the description below. It's also the same video linked from the actual website. Some cons to this: it's small, it's compact, it kind of markets itself as the simple, breezy experience, I think. But as evidenced kind of by the gameplay tutorial and the game's own admission that it's about a mid-level range of entry, I don't think it's a very breezy or fast or even super intuitive experience. That's not my final verdict review or anything. It's just something to consider. You'll have to let me know if you like the Tiny Epic series, what your favorite one is, and what you'd like to see on the channel as far as Tiny Epic goes. I don't have the itch to collect and play every Tiny Epic game, but there are some that really have caught my eye over the last year or two. And I am pretty curious about them, so I would like to hear your recommendations. And if you do hang out with me a bit in the Discord, always linked below, and you kind of have an idea of the kind of games that I gravitate towards, maybe you could recommend me one in particular that might suit my tastes. As for this one, I'm going to have to give it a college try, complete a few of these quests, and see if I can't master the overall gameplay loop before I figure out if it's something that is truly fun for me. Again, this isn't a review, it's not a let's play, just more unboxing, overview, and first impressions. Although I did unbox this prior to figure out if I'd be able to learn it super fast. At any rate, this is Tiny Epic Quest. We are done for now. You can join the Patreon if you'd like to influence the direction of the unboxing videos. I'll always put up a poll with several different games that I actually have and can unbox as soon as the poll ends, and as soon as I can be bothered to make the video. So I hope you'll check it out. There's some perks for you if you decide to become a member. Until then, guys, thank you so much for watching. Comment anything you'd like down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, have a great rest of your day, and bye for now.